Joining me now is a jiu-jitsu practitioner who won the EBI featherweight title with a tournament win at EBI 15 earlier this month. It is Jon Calestine joining me here on the program for the very first time. Jon, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, thank you so much for joining me as well. I appreciate it. Before we talk about EBI winning the featherweight title and stepping up on super short notice and all of that incredible story, what happened, of course, we'll talk about that for sure. But before that, I just want to talk about your backstory a little bit. How did you actually get involved in grappling in the first place?
Well, starting out in grappling, I was just recently dropped out of school and got into grappling just to find something to do. I always wanted to do some kind of combat sport, and grappling seemed to be the one that caught my attention. Really, MMA helped me get into doing grappling. Saw MMA, kind of wanted to do that, and then just came across jiu-jitsu in the process of, figuring out exactly what it is that I wanted to do.
Do you remember how old were you when you came across MMA and jiu-jitsu?
Well, I was always kind of a fan of MMA. I watched it even before I started training or really being interested in training any kind of combat sport. So maybe when I was a kid, fairly young, I would say like around 10 maybe, when I watched some MMA fights, my uncles were into it, back when Ultimate Fighter was first going on. And so that's when I first saw the sport. And then really started to watch it more in high school, and around 18 is when I finally started to train.
Okay, cool. Before grappling, and I guess before you started doing MMA training, were you always an athlete? Did you play, basketball or football or anything else?
Yeah, I was always active playing sports. My mom always liked putting us in sports to keep us out of trouble, me and my brother. So growing up, I played basketball, soccer, football, baseball, pretty much every sport. I did karate for like 5-6 years, so always being active, always doing some kind of athletic sport, yeah.
So as you mentioned, and I read in an interview you did from a little while back, I think you mentioned how you planned to do MMA, you planned to fight before you came across jiu-jitsu. You never actually had a fight though, did you?
No, I've never fought MMA. Originally, when I first started training for MMA, I was boxing a lot and wrestling, so I was going to do a boxing match, and then ended up that didn't happen. And then, because I had gotten hurt my hip bad, and I was out for like 3 months. And when I came back to training, I just started doing more jiu-jitsu. And from that point on, started to train a lot more jiu-jitsu than anything. I really haven't done any boxing at all since then.
Do you think you'll ever go back, or is it simply just you started doing boxing, started doing wrestling, and then you found jiu-jitsu, fell in love with it, and that's sort of that's really the story?
I do eventually want to get back into it, and I would like to fight MMA, and I feel like it's just I'm very set on certain goals that I have in jiu-jitsu, and I have like a time frame that I want to achieve these goals. And my goal is by 25 to have achieved these goals in jiu-jitsu, and then maybe start moving on to starting a career in MMA.
What are your main goals, if you don't mind me asking? Do you have specific ones
one of
right
them,
now?
Yeah, I mean, one of them was to win EBI before I was 25, which, it was cool to win it at 23. Originally, I had set a goal that before I turned 21, I was going to start grappling in tournaments for money, and another goal of mine is before 25 to compete in ADCC and hopefully win ADCC. So that's another goal. So
okay, so should that happen, then should you go to ADCC, win, and then it sort of move on and try out MMA again?
Yeah, I mean that would be a big hope for me. As long as my body holds up, because MMA is a totally different sport. I feel it's a totally different animal. It beats up your body a lot, and I have a lot of injuries already. So, as long as my body holds up, I would like to try and branch out to a career in MMA once I feel like I've achieved the goals that I set out to achieve in jiu-jitsu.
But I'd assume there's no rush, because you just had probably the biggest win of your grappling career earlier this month, right? So.
Yeah. So I mean, but yeah, no, it's a big deal. But you know, for me, I don't want to be content with the fact that I won EBI, and then you know, I wanna try and win the one. I want to win the 135 bout too, and I want to defend the 145. You know, that's my goals now. So now, you know, I had my little celebration. You know, I was celebrating that I won, you know, the tournament, but now it's time to move on and look to do even more. So.
Just out of curiosity, what is your natural weight class? Would it be 135 or 145?
Definitely 135. I
Okay.
walk around at 145. I've never minded competing at 145 because, you know, I don't feel like guys at 145 really have too much of a strength or size advantage over me. But like on Saturday, I weighed in at 142 with my my pants on, my shorts on. So you know,
The less dehydrated you can be, the better, right?
yeah. I mean, I don't cut any weight to make 45. So and when I make 35, I don't dehydrate really. I just diet and skip breakfast pretty much. Yeah, 45 is me just kind of like eating whatever I want.
So you traveled to Burbank, California earlier this month with your teammate Eddie Cummings, with your training partner. He was the then reigning champion. He was set to defend his title at EBI 15. Of course, it was the featherweight tournament. You had no indication you'd be competing, correct? I mean, this was simply just there to help out Eddie Cummings?
Yeah, no. So what happened was me and one of our other training partners, Chris, we flew out on Wednesday, and the plan was that we were all going to fly out there like 3 days before. We were going to train leading up to the tournament. Eddie was going to cut his weight while we were out there, and we were just going to be there in his corner, helping him with his warm-ups, helping him with his weight cut, you know, everything like that. And on Wednesday, when me and Chris had gotten out to California, Eddie was supposed to meet us out there and ended up missing his flight, which is what he told me. So he said he missed his flight and he was going to fly out early Thursday morning. I had no idea that he was sick. He joked about the fact that he was catching the flu. I didn't know that he was serious. But then, you know, Thursday morning came around, and I texted him what time he was getting in. He said he really wasn't feeling well and that he moved his flight back a little bit, and he's going to get there later on Thursday. So I was like, okay, whatever. Me and Chris just went and explored California. I didn't really train that whole week too much, just because, you know, we went out there early. Last time I trained was on Tuesday, and I didn't really have some place to train. So, you know, instead of going to train, which was the plan on Wednesday and Thursday, we just went to Santa Monica Pier and walked around, explored California a little bit. And while we were on Venice Beach Boardwalk, I get a call that, you know, Eddie is feeling really sick, and just he can't get on the plane yet, and that they don't know if Eddie's going to be able to make it out to California. So
is the call from EBI?
No, this is a call from Eddie.
Okay, okay.
And then, yeah, this is them calling me and letting me know that he was very sick, and he was going to try and come in on Friday morning, the day before the weigh-ins, and just he's going to do his best to get out there and try and compete. And when Friday morning came along, he said he was going to text me at 5 a.m. if he was able to get on the plane, because he was so sick. He wasn't able to get on the plane, and they called me. I actually got a text message at 5 o'clock in the morning that Eddie officially had to pull out on Friday morning. And then a couple minutes later, I was messaged by the EBI people if I wanted to take his spot, because Eddie had put in the word that I was already out there, and that if they needed somebody, that I was ready to go and I could just take his place. So, you know, Eddie gave me his spot when he couldn't make it out there. He was just too sick. He had 104-degree fever, throwing up, coughing, everything. And the UFC people called me, and they put me in basically on Friday morning. And I sent over my headshots that morning.
That is insane. What was your reaction when they asked you, when they said, hey, Jon, do you want to, you know, I know it's on basically a day's notice, but you want to compete at EBI 15? What went through your head?
I was definitely nervous and kind of like iffy about if I was like prepared to step in on short notice, knowing that it was such a tough bracket, knowing that it was such a big stage that I've never been on before, and to do it on 24 hours notice. I definitely was nervous at first, but of course I said yes. Can't pass up opportunities like that. I mean, because we train every day. I was in Eddie's camp the whole time, so we were just training every day, helping him prepare for this EBI. So in helping him being prepared, I was prepared, and I felt like I was prepared to do it. I would have preferred to train leading up to the tournament, being as though I did not train. That was the biggest thing that made me nervous, is that I felt that I was underprepared in my training. But, once I got the call, it took me a minute or two to actually say yes. But I finally texted them, yeah, I'll do it, and then they just put me in.
Interesting. So it's not like you were out of shape or anything, so that wasn't a major concern. Because as you said, you were training with Eddie all camp.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much training throughout the year, the same pace all the time. Usually after a tournament, I'd take maybe a week or two just to rest my body a little bit, but most of the time throughout the year, I'm training pretty hard. Usually when I have something coming up 2 or 3 weeks beforehand, pick up the pace a little bit, maybe do some specific training based on the rule sets because of EBI, maybe some specific back work or some specific lumbar escapes and attacks, things like that. But other than that, I'm pretty much training throughout the year hard. So, I was in shape and I felt good to go.
So then when it's a done deal that you're competing the next day at EBI 15 in place of your teammate Eddie Cummings, what do you immediately do? Do you start to try and research some of the competitors on the bracket? Do you just go right to the gym and start training? What happened right afterwards?
So what happened right afterwards was, first I went to make sure that I didn't eat too much In-N-Out Burger the day before. So I went down to the hotel fitness area, check my weight, and then really to study the guys that were in the tournament. I mean, most of the guys that were on my side of the bracket, pretty much everybody that I competed against on Saturday, except for Gio, I had competed against previously at least once or twice already. So, it was really just about those matches were matches that I had watched already over and over again, looking for mistakes, looking for things that I could have been doing better. So all of my opponents, luckily on Saturday, I had already been studying for a long time, being as though we had matches. And whether or not I won, I always go back and I always see what I could be doing better and what I could have done better in a match, or things that I've screwed up or so I'm always studying my wins and studying my losses. So luckily I competed against all 3 of my first matches were against somebody I competed against. And, of course, getting Eddie ready for Gio, we watched a lot of tape on Gio and have been, working a lot of things specifically for that match to happen. So, it was really just me taking everything that Eddie has been going over to get ready for the tournament and just putting it into action myself, being as though I was there when he was going over everything.
And as far as your expectations for yourself, considering you stepped up on a day's notice, you felt initially maybe underprepared, although obviously you weren't underprepared that much, if at all. What were your expectations? Realistically, how far did you think you'd go?
Usually when I compete, I expect to win. So I was definitely expecting to make it to the finals. I try to think positive throughout the whole time, even though I do get negative thoughts. But I definitely was expecting to make it to the finals. I wasn't too sure about what was going to happen in the finals because I knew how tough Gio was, but I definitely had the high expectation of being in the finals against Gio. And definitely before I stepped out for my final match against Gio, before I had stepped on the mat, I told myself that I'm going to win this tournament. So definitely had the high expectation of winning.
What's it like as an EBI champion? Has it sunk in yet?
Yeah, it started to sink in. It took a little bit to finally sink in. It kind of felt like it wasn't real. Like, it kind of felt fake at first because it's something that I was always been thinking about and always wondering, if I won, what would it be like? And then it finally happened, and it kind of took a little bit for it to sink in. I remember after the tournament, I sat there on the bleachers at the Muscle Farm HQ, kind of just staring at the belt and, just kind of taking it all in, sinking it, and just letting it sink in. I actually won, and I wasn't even supposed to be in the tournament. So, that kind of took a little bit to sink in. But when it finally sunk in, it felt good. So it was just an amazing experience.
Now, when I was watching the event, I know a guy that I've worked with in the past that is a big fan of EBI as well, and he messaged me right after you had beat Gio, and he said, basically Jon is a star, a new star born. I know you've grappled. Yeah, I mean, you've grappled for quite a while already. So this isn't any disrespect to you at all. But do you feel like you've sort of become a star overnight in the jiu-jitsu world?
I don't know. I mean, I definitely have more followers on Instagram, but I don't know if I'm a star.
But this is career-changing, at the very least, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's definitely career-changing. I mean, I went from, having less than $2,000 in my savings account, and, my car just broke down like a week before. My transmission blew on my car, and I didn't have a job teaching because I had just lost my job teaching jiu-jitsu, so I had no income, and I was burning through my savings, and then all of a sudden this came up, and it just completely changed everything for me overnight. Like, pretty much my whole life changed. It went from, I was pretty much feeling like things were going downhill after, winning all of those local tournaments and, trying my best to get my name out there, and I just wasn't catching a break. And then all of a sudden this just came along, and it just kind of like changed my life overnight. It changed pretty much everything. Within less than 24 hours, my whole life changed, for sure.
Did you say that you lost your job as a jiu-jitsu coach?
Yeah, recently, like a month or two before EBI, I was teaching at a gym in Astoria, Queens, and the gym had, lost its jiu-jitsu program, and, so I didn't have an income, so, yeah.
Why did they get rid of their program? Do you know?
The gym, the members and stuff like that, gyms are hard. It's hard to build up a gym. And so, it just turned into that kind of situation where the gym just wasn't working out, and, had to kill the jiu-jitsu program.
How much money did you end up taking home for this title win? Because I know I always get confused with the EBI rules, because whether you go to overtime or you don't makes a difference. How much did you actually pocket with this tournament?
So because of the Geo match, because we went to overtime, I only won $15,000.
Okay, and if you had beaten him in regulation, how much would it have been? Do you know?
$20,000.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
that extra $5,000. That $20,000 would have been nice. 15 is great, but an extra $5,000 always makes a difference. Especially being as though after taxes, I'm not going to see much of that $15,000. So, but that's all right.
I would assume you've talked to Eddie since this. I probably multiple times.
Yeah, I've seen Eddie a few times already.
What was his reaction to you winning?
Oh, he was just happy for me. He's been him and a few other people have been my biggest supporters, and, he was very happy for me. It sucks that he got sick, but he pushed for me to get in because he knew that I was ready, and he believed that I was capable of doing what it is that he needed to do on Saturday. He was 100% confident that I was going to go in there, and I was going to take care of what I needed to do. And, I really appreciate him putting so much trust in me and so much effort into me. And he's been such a big help in my career and in my jiu-jitsu and just in general and everything. He's been so key in everything for me in the past couple of years. So, I really appreciate everything that Eddie had done for me. So, he gave me an opportunity that pretty much changed my life.
And I know you
pretty much, yeah.
I know you can't speak on his behalf, but it must be kind of nice for him to give up the title to one of his teammates, because it would have been a little less or more fortunate, I guess you could say, if he, or less fortunate if he, some just random person he wasn't really, he didn't train with or didn't know had won the featherweight title instead of you.
Oh, yeah, of course it would have probably not been, he probably wouldn't have been too happy, being as though he would have had to forfeit it to somebody that, he didn't have a match with, that he doesn't know, and he only forfeited it because he was sick. So, it definitely feels a lot better for him to be able to, give me the opportunity to go out and win the belt. And, now the belt stays within the team, it stays within us, and now we're going to go back into the gym and we're going to work and get better and then go out there and defend it and keep it within the team.
So you said that the gym you were coaching at no longer has its program. Do you coach anywhere else, or was that? Really
I'm going to be coaching at another gym, Boncho MMA, by Matt Kaplan, in the next month or so when it finally opens up. So yeah, that'll definitely, be a good income, and it also give me another place to train.
So between competing and coaching, is this basically a full-time thing for you, or once you get this new position coaching, will it be?
No, it's been a full-time thing for me for the past couple of years. Before I started competing professionally in jiu-jitsu for money, I was working for a DJ company. So then I quit that like a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half, and then just started training and competing full-time. I was also in community college for a little bit, for like 2 years, so once I stopped doing that, I started competing, and the past year and a half to 2 years, I really just been focusing on my jiu-jitsu career, training and competing full-time.
Well, Jon, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it. Congratulations once again on winning EBI 15. Great work, and looking forward to seeing what's next for you. Before I let you go, let my audience know where they can find you on social media, and if there's anybody you'd like to thank or give a shout out to, the floor is yours.
First of all, thank you for having me. If anybody wants to find me, of course, you could just type my name into YouTube. Lots of good videos up there. If you need to find me on Instagram, it's Jon, Jon_Calestine, and Facebook is Jonathan Calestine. And pretty much just want to thank everybody who helped me get to this point. Everybody at the Henzo's, all the Henzo gyms. I train with so many different people: Eddie, Tafia, Matt Kaplan, Chris, Alon. So many of my core training partners that really stick with me. My family and my friends, everybody. So, yeah, thank you.